Hello there, folks. Today I'm gonna be showcasing my infinite tornado build I've been working on for quite a long time. Though it's not min-max, it's already outperforming many builds out there, and being one of the most busted build I think one could make to cheese quite possibly 26-3 depths and co-op, or even a single player with +9 stone easily. Makes depths of the underworld honestly feel like underworld level, and it counters all the bosses that I've done in the game. So without further ado, let's get started. First of all, let's go through the essential gears and set bonus combination that we will be using. So this build consists of 3 graces and set bonus, with the requirement of Onmyo austerity and Sarutai Hiko. We'll go through them one by one. For Onmyo austerity, it's a great bonus for this, because we're going to be staying in the tornado form as long as possible. That's the aim of the build. And you don't want to get one tap during the tornado, right? So Onmyo austerity plays perfectly into this build concept. For that, the 4-piece bonus gives us reduced attack Onmyo hit, which decreases the enemy's damage by 30%, and that's a fuck ton. And really makes it free tanky, as well as the 5-piece bonus and 5+piece bonus, which is damage bonus Onmyo power A-, and empower Onmyo magic B-. These give additional damage as well as additional melee damage, and furthermore, the tornado actually procs empower Onmyo magic. This is something I found out after I actually tried tornado with empower Onmyo magic, originally starting with the Honor and Harmony set just for memes, but it turns out to be quite a little busted. Just to showcase how it works, so I use a Onmyo, and if I use tornado, see the bottom left, it actually recovered as tornado. It recovers that familiar talisman I used when I hit the enemy with tornado. This allows us to constantly spam our Onmyo, recover our Onmyo as well, and also debuff the enemy. Let's say lifesteal. You only need to bring 1 because you can just recover it very fast. So this is Onmyo austerity is definitely a must for this build. Move on to the next bonus and combination is the Sarutai Hiko's Grace. This is a killer. Sarutai Hiko is already a quite busted grace. It gives a lot of yokai ship related bonus, Milivia's corruption, and most importantly, the one that we need, Blood of the Yokai. So what does it do? Blood of the Yokai actually allow you to stack up to 5 stack each time you use an yokai ability. Each stack gives you 10% extra anima charge. That's multiplicative and non-conflicting anima charge. But also, when you spend anima, it gives you Emerita. It recharges your Emerita gauge in proportion to the anima you spend. So therefore, making your yokai shift charge much faster. It also gives us yokai shift related bonus, like yokai ability damage yokai shift, 20%. That's pretty high, right? Yokai ability charge yokai shift, 30%. Okay, I'll take that. Good. Anima 2.0. We want that anima because with a higher cap of anima, we have a longer room left for our tornado to stay in the first place, to last, because of the higher cap. We got a Milivia's corrupted enemy. This is a corruption build after all, and that's gonna work in our favor to give us much needed extra melee damage towards the enemy when we're not using Onmyo power. When you're not in the tornado, say, my bad. The last set piece that's gonna combo into this is either the Kaim Patriots or the Imokai. We need a two-piece set bonus of grace to complement each other, and I wanted to choose one that is more unique in effects and that could also somehow help our build. So I used the Crime of Patrioticide set bonus for the extended yokai shift, just so our yokai shift is our trump card, and I'll explain that later on. Or you could also use Imokane, which give us the blindness status on scorched enemy. If you play through depths, you will know that the boss in the depths really like to grapple you. They could spam up to 4 to 5 grapple at a time, and it's quite possibly annoying to get one shot by those grapple. You can do anything about it. So, blindness on scorch is perfect for this build, as the tornado itself is fire element, and we'll be abusing fire element as well to apply blindness on scorch enemy. You know, it complements the tornado, and it complements the build, and it prevents us from getting grapple all the time. So, I like it. That being said, let's go through the armor pieces themselves. So there's really a lot of ways you can mismatch the armors. Like, for example, but I mainly use this mismatch to optimize the armor's ability to its fullest. So for the primary weapon, I have the Great Ninjutsu. It's for the Onmyo austerity set bonus. You would want possibly star effect or type bonus magic, or anything that's got up to 200. You want imbued corruption, which is pretty hard to get, and I'm pretty lucky for this one, because my previous one is pretty good, but it doesn't have the stats of life drain active skill that I wanted. It will give us much needed life and survivability outside of the tornado state if we ever get hit by the enemy. The break stat help us to defeat a human enemy much easier, but also it helps our tornado in breaking the human enemy's ki. So that's why that stat is there. You could also have active skill a break or melee ki damage. That's also a really good option too, like melee ki damage star. Melee attack ki consumption is just great because you want to try to attack while also dodge, and you don't want to run out of ki. That's why it's there in the first place. For the second weapon, I use a corrupted katana, which is Tokagimaru. You could honestly slot in any weapon of your choice for this slot, as long as it has Sarutahiko's grace, so that we can achieve the 7-piece Sarutahiko bonuses. For secondary, you would also want life strain active skill, possibly star effect attack bonus, and maybe an inheritable transform bonus if the weapon itself does not scale with your stats. So, for example, for this katana, I have attack bonus magic. I use transform bonus magic to change my high scaling to attack to magic, so that it doesn't have too bad of a damage. The difference is not too much, though I mainly do use Odachi for aggression, because I like Odachi more than katana for this build. I feel like the range is much higher, it's much longer, and you can attack swiftly with high damage and pretty destructive power as well, without the need for having like 7,200 damage with a lot of melee damage. That's not gonna be the focus of this build. For the range weapon, you could really use anything. Just let it go. Like, as long as it has Sarutahiko's grace, it's gonna be good to go. I mainly use cannon as the secondary weapon, and what you want on cannon, and why cannon, is that you want to get that fire damage. Because that fire damage, when you're using it as a primary range weapon, it's gonna be reflective onto your current character. So therefore, if I have my cannon as the primary range weapon, I will have that 10% extra fire damage applied to my tornado, as well as that damage bonus from ability. So you would want that as well. And other than that, you can use any cannon, any matlock. The reason I use matlock and then cannon is because I just want like one faster range weapon and one, heavier range weapon, heavy range power on the enemy. So it's situational based that I pulled this one out, but I'll have the cannon as the primary every time I engage in a melee combat. And you would want that as well. You want it as the primary as many times as possible, unless you're using the matlock, in which then you will have to change to matlock as primary, then change back. Let's go over the armor set here. So for the helmet, the reason I have my other 3 armor piece for Onmyo austerity, and the last piece for the sub bonus is the last piece for Genru set is because I wanted the helmet to be of one of my choice, because usually helmet has some of the best fixed set bonus effects. Some of the best fixed effects, like for example, if I take Tengu's helmet, right? You got super efficient yokai ability, 10% and max pen. So you're basically getting a 10% discount on all your yokai ability when you spend them. And that's super good, right? And so, for the helmet, I choose the Wild Boar helmet. This is because it gives us damage taken health unscathed. And pair this up with the Honda clan, which I am in right now. That gives damage taken health unscathed 80%, plus active skill damage 8%. It's gonna help our survivability massively, as with damage taken health unscathed, it just means that you take half the damage when you're 100% health, essentially meaning that you got 50% damage reduction at full health, which prevents you from getting ever one-shotted. With Wild Boar helmet and the Honda, you can achieve 100%, effectively proccing this effect every time you're full health. So this will help us greatly, and will work to our advantage of Tornado, as we explain onward. It also works with our Onmyo austerity because of the reduced attack Onmyo hit. So that we take 30% less damage and then 50% less damage. So you basically don't get one shot at all. Even by +9 stone bosses, you don't get one shot if they suddenly bitch slap you out of nowhere. That's Shanten. He bitch slap you with his gourd out of nowhere. Or you suddenly get like light strike by Yorimitsu, or Minamoto no Yoshitsune just suddenly kick you out of nowhere. Yeah, you won't get one shot. And it will allow you to recover your health somehow, or even with Tornado, give you that chance of opportunity to not die. to revenge as well. So on the helmet, what you want as an essential is Sarutahiko's Grace. That's the essential one. As for the other 2 star effects, you have a range of different star effects, notably melee damage star, Anima charge melee attack, and star Anima. Though because this is not a set bonus helmet, we cannot get 3 star effect on this. So therefore I only have 2 star effect, and what I got is melee damage and Anima charge melee attack. So melee damage is good, right? You want that melee damage, that extra damage when you're out of your infinite tornado. Anima charge melee attack. It's a unique grace for the helmet. It's a unique star effect for the helmet. And it basically gives us 18% Anima charge when we do melee attack. And that would let us charge our Anima really fast, super fast, when doing melee attack, which then allow us to proc Sarutahiko, and therefore setting up the infinite tornado. Anima is also a much preferred star effect as well. You want Anima um, because the higher your Anima capacity, the longer your tornado can potentially last. So, um, depending on your choice, you could use Anima instead of melee damage if you want, because you can always temper melee damage. And maybe replace Onmyo power. I have Onmyo power just to increase my maximum Onmyo, and because my damage scales with Onmyo. Untouched Onmyo magic, just so that there's a chance that I can recover my Onmyo items while using them, so I don't have to manually recover them all with empowered Onmyo. And attack just to increase our base damage. And because our base damage is directly linked to the damage that the tornado will output. For the chest, I use Omega Austerity. What you want to get on this chest is definitely damage taken, because you want to take as less damage during that animation as possible. It's also an exclusive star effect for the chest and the waist guard. And as you can see, I have damage taken on my waist guard as well. On my chest, I also have melee damage star effects, just to give us much more damage. That's all. You want to roll the other two following set of the elemental damage taken and life recovery and retail absorption, because these will give us much more sustainability, as elemental damage taken 13% is really helpful, so we don't get one shot by elemental base attack. Well, the retail absorption and life recovery will place well into our build, as we'll be absorbing huge amount of retail to sustain our tornado. And so that would give us a lot of life recovery in the process to have a lot of survivability. Since this is a set bonus armor, you can get 3 star effects on this one. If preferred, I feel like this one is the perfect rule for me. But if you prefer, you can get Onmyo magic power star effect. That's like a blue stats. That's a blue star effect, and just get more Onmyo power for so that you deal more damage with the empowered Onmyo and damage bonus Onmyo magic power. Okay. For the armor, I also has attack on this. That's to boost my base damage of the weapon. Moving on to the gauntlets. I'm also using an Onmyo Austerity. As you can see, because it's a set bonus armor, it has 3 star effects I could get. For this glove, I think this is a perfect roll for me. It got melee damage, melee attack key consumption that would help us in engaging with the enemy out of tornado form, and also faster movement Onmyo magic power hit. It's a great effect because we're gonna have our familiar talisman up a lot of times, and we were able to recover them through empower Onmyo so we'll be able to get a speed boost every time we use familiar talisman. That would help us in maneuvering in the battlefield, in the tornado field form, and just maneuver in general. Like, you're just running faster. You have faster animation, and that's great. For that 2 effect, I have Onmyo power, as stated before, just to boost our Onmyo more, and that would also directly help our damage. We have untouched Onmyo power, Onmyo magic, just so we can have a chance to recover item, and then we have attack again. For the waist guard, I'm missing another star effect, and I prefer that it would be melee damage. What you want is damage taken. Same as the chest, you want that damage taken. Since it's exclusive for the pants, and along with the chest, you essentially get additional 9.6% damage taken. Almost 10% additional damage reduction. And that's awesome. Other than that, you might want a star effect melee damage, and also star effect Onmyo power as well. Just just to help out with more damage, of course. The auto life recovery ki depleted is not a necessity, as you probably won't want to run out of ki at any moment in time. And we have melee ki consumption in place so that my character doesn't run out of ki. Not a lot of time, unless you're blocking and you get guard break, then that's something else. Yeah, so that is not necessary. But what you want to focus is definitely damage taken on the pants, and maybe melee damage as a secondary star effect later on if you can get it. On this, I also have attack and untouched Onmyo magic. For the last one, I have Genru's Greaves, but you can also have Imokane, as stated before. What you definitely want is dodge range up. This is an exclusive stats on the Grievous, and it will allow us to dodge much more distance, so that it makes dodging much easier against the boss that when you're not in the tornado stage. On this, I also have active skill ki damage and active skill damage star effect, though I prefer melee damage and melee ki damage instead. However, this is the best one I can get so far. I also have faster wind and recovery on the Grievous, because I don't know what else to get. This, I have the Onmyo magic power, and I touch Onmyo magic covered here. And much preferably, I would switch attack with active skill ki damage. The faster window would let us recover really fast when we suddenly get guard broken out of nowhere. So let's go to the Imokane. I much prefer the Imokane stats, though the 2P bonus might not always work all the time. Definitely got the attack that I wanted with faster winded Onmyo magic power. We got the untouched Onmyo with melee damage star and dodge range up star. And you want something like this for your Grievous for this set, with either Imokane or Genru set. Genru Grievous, yeah. And if you're not using either of those, I recommend using a light armor boots, because there's another exclusive star stats on light armored boots. Notice how this one is heavy armor and Imokane is medium armor, so I wasn't able to show it on my two of the most trusted armor. But just to illustrate, on a light armor boot, you see how this one is light? There's the star effect, extended dodge, and vulnerability. Those just help us really greatly in dodging enemy that extended dodge, so that it makes dodges much more easier. Combined with dodge range up and agility B, you can basically play a no-hit run if you really prefer, and really help us survive before we get that tornado up and running, which is our trumpet card. As for the accessories, it would be much more preferred if you get a Magatama or even a Yasakane, as they give life recovery and metal absorption. I use Sphere Bead just as a substitute because I couldn't find anything better. And what you want on both of them is, the first thing you want is definitely Sarutahiko's Grace. And also, at least one has set bonus requirement, reduce -1. That's really essential to let us get all the Grace pieces bonus, that 5 Onmyo austerity, with that 7 Sarutahiko and that 2-piece additional bonus. You definitely want that. And you could even use in Yasakane, because Yasakane has that as a fixed stat. If we take a look here. Oh god. Yep. See, it has it as a fixed bonus. A secondary stat that you might want to get on your accessory, or at least one of the accessories, is the star effect Sloth Onmyo magic hit. It's gonna be especially useful as we're gonna be constantly have that Onmyo familiarity up to set up debuffs and also give us regen as well. So, which means to say that I'm gonna be constantly applying stuff on the enemy as well, which means that 20% animation speed reduced, and it's gonna help us get less hit. It's gonna make the boss much easier to maneuver with, because depth bosses are super fast, and this is gonna be great for all the other teammates who's playing with you, who also can get these bonuses, get to enjoy this debuff on the bosses. Other than that, there's nothing much required for this. Maybe the life recovery and Rita absorption, just so that when we absorb and Rita, we get more life recovery, so to help out with survivability. The reason I want a Magatama for this is mainly for the Anima charge fixed bonus. It's 7%. You can also use a white Magatama for Anima charge unscathed, and because we'll be in unscathed state most of the time, so that Anima charge is gonna proc most of the time as well. And you want as high as Anima charge as possible, so that we can stay in the tornado for as long as possible. Other star effects such as melee damage via certain elements, melee damage via Yoki, or melee damage in general is much preferred for that when you're out of the tornado state, but it's not necessary. It's not a necessity for this to be a viable build in the first place, because our main damage is not going to come from our melee damage, but it's going to come from the tornado, the yokai ability, and the yokai shift. Sentience charge is also much preferred, because when you get a weakened weapon, you get 30% extra damage, and that's great, and you can apply corruption really easily. So if you want to, you could go ahead and get 60% sentience charge on both of your accessories if you want to. As an last note, you could also get a peer resistance on both of the accessory. The resistance always capped at 13.9, no matter which accessory you rolled on, and it's gonna give us much more tankiness against elemental damage, so that when we cover physical damage, we don't get one-shotted by elemental damage as well. And it's also good for those elemental damage bosses like Takemaru, Lightning God of Yomi, because they're mainly elemental based, and so that other bonuses that's countered physical damage mainly might not work on, will be covered with your elemental resistance, high elemental resistance, so as to provide much more survivability against these type of bosses. And it's most likely that most bosses have at least one element to begin with, so it's always great to increase the resistance of the particular element you hate to fight with. Like for me, I have lightning resistance because I hate the lightning bosses. I hate Lightning God of Yomi, Nioh, with their one-shot lightning. It's quite annoying, so I have this additional lightning resistance just to counter them. Moving on to the scroll. And the scroll, I would say this one's a perfect scroll. Though the bonus is dependable, it's good for me. So I have fixed that Ultimate Constitution and Ultimate Courage. Ultimate Constitution gives us auto life recovery, maximum health HP recovery above 70% health. And it's most likely that we're gonna heal really fast, so that can place well into our tornado build, as to give us even more survivability. Or even if you get like poison or something, it's gonna recover your health to max, as to proc the damage taken health on scathe bonuses, so that you don't get a one shot when you're slowly losing health over time. Old Courage is just great. Basically gives you melee ki consumption minus 20% when you have 150 courage and you proc these bonuses. This will give us much more needed ki, so that we will be able to attack and dodge when we're out of the tornado form. Ultimate magic here it's just to give us longer buff duration. 50% longer to be precise for Onmyo buff. And it's really, really good because we want to keep our buff as long as possible so we don't have to rebuff too much during the duration of the fight. It also makes our debuff lasted longer. So longer sloth, longer reduced attack, longer life steal, all that goodness. It's great. Untouched Onmyo magic, so that we got a chance to not waste an item. And damage bonus Onmyo magic plays well into our build because we have a lot of Onmyo power because our damage mostly scale with Onmyo power as well. So that could further increase our damage and our damage from all the sources except yokai ability maybe. Path of the Demon is the only grace I find is best. I was thinking of using Path of the Beast, however it's gonna increase our anima cost so that tornado would last much less longer. So I didn't go for that. You could also go with Path of the Ravenous, for that you heal more of the life recovery and meter absorption. However, I don't see that bonuses benefiting in all ways in which that the Amrita you absorbs, the increase of healing the Amrita per you absorbs is completely offsetted by the decrease in the rate you gain at Amrita. So I don't find that bonus of healing. And I would say for most build, Path of the Demons is the best one. We're gonna be utilizing Stop Talisman to prevent any elemental status nor confusion from being applied. Which means to say that Path of the Demon debuff, in which that alignment would be extended and cannot be removed, will pretty much not appear, not proc at all, because we won't be getting much elements in the first place. Maybe sloth from the bullshit Onmyo mages, but that's about it. And what's the benefit of this? We get extended duration of status enhancement, any status enhancement. So even our Empower Onmyo is buffed by 30% extra duration, as well as our debuffs. No, as well as our status, our buffs, Onmyo buffs, is also boosted by 30% duration. So that's really, really nice. That being said, we have finished the build section, and we'll be going on to the item section. So for the first page of item, I have elixir at the top. Elixir, you can see from the bottom left of the screen. I got the 3 stop talisman of fire stop, lightning stop, and water stop to not only prevent elemental status from being applied, prevent confusion, but also give us 40 extra resistance, elemental resistance, so that we can combat those elemental damage. For the second slot, I have Gust Wind at the top. Gust Wind is mainly for co-op purposes in which it repels projectile, and it's great to have because I play a lot of co-op. 2 gusts, because you don't need that much gust to begin with, because it's only the last boss that would start spawning archers. I have Steel Talisman to give us 20% damage reduction. 3 is much needed for 3 balls. I got 3 Extraction. For that we will proc a couple of Amrita related bonuses, such as Amrita of Life Recovery, and something we'll go over it as well later. Now, it will not only give us survivability, but give us the ability to sustain the tornado. On the right side, we got Arch Hokai. It's a much needed talisman. It gives us 50% extra flat anima region, and that's gonna be very good when it combos into Sarutahiko's Blood of Yokai, so that we got 100% extra anima region to keep our tornado up as long as possible. For the third slot, I have Lifesteal at the top. It is mainly for counter human and also plays well into our tornado. Our tornado actually deals break damage, if I show you right here. tornado actually does extremely high break damage, and hence I got break on my Otachi as well. And so after breaking the enemy, you want to lifesteal them so that the human enemy doesn't recover their ki at all, so that they don't stand up and start hyper arming you and fucking you up right away. And not only that, but because of Empower Onmyo, our tornado, as established before, our tornado procs Empower Onmyo. So bringing one lifesteal is enough, because if we bring one lifesteal, we're able to recover it fast enough. See how fast it recovered there? We'll be able to recover it really, really fast, so in case we need it again, we can debuff the boss again, the human bosses. And since it's a very expensive talisman, but it's a very much needed and really effective talisman against human, I advise being one. Anything above that would be overkill, unless you have additional stuff to temper with. For the left side, I have Fire Familiar Talisman. This guy allows us to proc Onmyo hit related status. Like Onmyo hit slot, reduced defense, and faster movement speed, so we move way faster when we hit the boss with the Onmyo. Pairing up with extraction, we'll be able to extract Amrita from the boss if our familiar talisman hit the boss or the enemy. It's gotta be really good to help us with survivability, but not only that, but also get our arena regen back. We can also use this familiar talisman in conjunction with our tornado, so that it procs the bonuses as we move along with the tornado. 2 is generally enough because of how high it takes. The amount slot it takes is 3, and we need the other slots for other items, so we don't want to bring too many. And since we got Empower Onmyo, not to mention, we can recover that anytime we want. So that 2, with only 2, you probably will never run out of Onmyo at all. For the bottom, we have Barrier Talisman. This gives us triple ki recovery, and will make our fight with enemy much more easier. So not only our ki decrease less, but also we can recover them really quickly to dodge that shit. As an additive bonus, it automatically take out Yokai Realm. See that Yokai Realm? Those Yokai Realm will regenerate the ki of the Yokai enemies. So by taking them out, automatically you don't have to focus too much about the Yokai Realms and them regenerating their ki. For the for the right slot, we have the Resistance Talisman. I only bring one because special talisman is special in preventing only poison and paralysis from being applied. Though they are not elements, they could be proven detrimental, as we want to get paralyzed during the middle of a tornado and get potentially gained on by multiple enemy or by the boss. Only some bosses, however, bring paralysis-related perks, such as Misuhid, the Suicide Bomber one, and also like the Big Toad, which has paralysis bombs. So this talisman is merely for countering those bosses, and therefore I don't need to bring a lot because it's very unlikely that both of them would appear. Nor would resistant talisman be especially useful, but it's great for level clearing, as there's more paralysis related enemies during level clearing. For the last slot, I have quick change as my ninjutsu, and I have levitation. Quick change will give us an extra life if we ever to die, and it will give us the opportunity to rebuff and continue the fight outside of tornado, of course. And for levitation, it just prevents us from getting caught by those status terrain fields from the bosses that in the depths that usually do quite a lot of damage, and especially if you're in yokai form. Those terrain effects drain your yokai form really fast. So you just want this levitation for certain bosses like Kaisha or Aurelium to prevent those terrain effects from fucking you up at all. For the left side, I bring Sacred Brush because sometimes you'll run out of Onmyo magic, and it's good to have it as a shortcut to refill those Onmyo magic, and then use your Empower to refill them indefinitely. It's only for an emergency. As for the top one, I have the Amulet of Camaraderie. It's used for reviving players if they die from a distance, so that let's say if you cannot make it during time, you can revive them from distance, and that will prevent the blue bar from being drained, nor the risk of you charging into a boss that's killing your friends and potentially killing you and ruin your team as well. So that pretty much covered the item section. And moving on to one of the most crucial part of this build. The graces are very crucial, but what we're here for is definitely the Guardian Spirit and the Soulcores abilities. So, starting from Guardian Spirit, I use Kuzuno Hata Fox as the primary Guardian Spirit, and Hakutaku as the secondary Guardian Spirit. So the reason for using Kuzuno Fox the Fox is because of how good its bonuses is. It gives an innate elemental damage and yokai ability damage aiding enemy. As we'll be applying debuff with Familiar Talisman all the time, yokai ability damage aiding enemy would be proc all the time, which means that our tornado deals even way more damage to begin with. 10% extra damage is always good. Take that. Not only that, but the Fox has a Nioh bonus Onmyo magic hit. Since our familiar is going to be hitting the enemy a lot of times, it's going to passively regenerate our anima as well. And thanks to the aid of Arch Yokai and Blood the Yokai, it's going to give us really high additional passively regen anima, so that we can sustain our tornado as long as possible. That's the main reason I use him. For the secondary Guardian Spirit, Hakutaku, the main reason is for yokai ability damage Phantom. Since the Fox is a Phantom Spirit, I'm gonna be using Inera as a Phantom Spirit, the Tornado as a Phantom. So this one basically gives my Tornado additional 10% damage. Going into the crucial part, the Soulcores. I have Ippon, Yoki, and Inera. So for the Ippon, Ippon is just awesome. It can do a whole range of things and really help you stack up the Blood of Yokai stack when you're not using Tornado. As each time you use a yokai ability and hit an enemy, you can gain an additional stack. For Ikon, for the Yoki, I mainly have the anima bonus and retop absorption. It's used to sustain the tornado indefinitely through absorbing Amrita from all kinds of sources, not only giving us survivability, but give us huge amount of passive anima regen in the process. For Yoki, really you can get a lot of bonuses, or any type of bonuses you want, but mainly I prefer attack, because our Soulcore is going to be scaling with our base attack, so higher attack means more damage. And also anima cap, because with a higher anima cap, we'll be able to use Tornado much more longer. As for our MVP of this build, it's Inara Tornado. For its fixed stats, we got anima, maximum anima, and that plays well into our build, as well as the Nioh bonus Scorch enemy. Though it doesn't work on most enemy, when it works, it does give us a lot of anima when the enemy is Scorched. So therefore I'm bringing fire familiar attachment for the exact reason. Though you can change up the fire familiars with lightning familiars and water familiars to apply confusion, I don't think that's entirely necessary to do for this build, as this build could sustain itself without the need for confusion. Therefore, you can counter bosses like your Yoshitsune and Daimyo effectively. On NRL, what you want is Life Drain Yokai ability hit. This effect is going to be crucial to us because the healing from Life Drain Yokai ability hit is a lot. And you're going to be taking damage during that yokai transformation. During that tornado, you're going to be getting hit accidentally more often than not. And that life drain is going to heal you up to 100% so that you get that 50% damage taken bonus. Pairing up with Onmyo Austerity, reduced attack, innate damage taken, decent health cap, and other passive sources like life recovery, immortal absorption. You're gonna be healing really fast, and you're gonna be not. They won't be able to one-shot you. Not to mention that during yokai form, you got 20% additional damage taken, damage reduction to be exact, during a yokai form. Which means instead that during the tornado form, you'll get additional damage reduction, so that it makes it almost that the boss cannot kill you during that form, because you'll be healing super fast, you'll be having super high damage reduction, so that the boss couldn't deal much damage to you, nor kill you entirely. Even Nioh Tengu's burst attack couldn't kill me. It deals roughly around 2000 damage only, and that's step 30 without Kodama. Put it into perspective, on plus 9 stone, the bolts deal 100% additional damage. It's only 4000 damage, while my health cap is at 6500. So it's entirely impossible for the boss to kill you at all. You'll have crazy amount of survivability while passively dealing damage to the enemy. And this build is called Infinite Tornado, for that you want to keep this as long as possible so that you become invulnerable, but also dealing damage to the boss. Not only damage, key damage as well to the boss, indefinitely. It's much preferred to have increased attack yokai ability hit, so that whenever you use yokai ability, you get that additional damage bonus for your melee damage when you're exited out of the emission. Though I prefer it be on E-part because I'll be using this when I'm not using the tornado. What you want best for this is definitely max yokai ability key damage. And yokai ability damage if you want to min-max this build, to just get more damage and more key damage for that tornado spin. Though I only have melee damage vs corrupted enemy because my luck is quite bad. After countless times farming, that's the best one I've got, so I'll stick with it. For the Soulcores, you definitely, as a necessity, want Anima bonus Unscathed Rita and Anima bonus and Rita Absorption. These would provide us much more a lot of passive anima region from the extraction talents, from extraction anima Amrita, and because of the multiplier from Arch Yokai, from other anima charge, as well as from Blood of Yokai, your anima is gonna be regioning really fast, super fast in fact, to the point you can sustain the tornado indefinitely on the boss, where you'll be invulnerable, but also dealing damage over time on them, physical plus fire damage. And the reason you might ask, why don't you just get Anima bonus and Rita Absorption for the Epon as well? The reason being that if I have these two stats, it's gonna diversify the sources of which my passive Anima region came from. And if I decide to stack these two together, it's gonna be A grade, but having a B grade and a B grade is gonna be much fast. It's gonna give us much more Anima region from absorbing those Amrita, the Unscathed Amrita and Anima absorption, Amrita absorption. And it doesn't matter if it's Unscathed Amrita, as we will be full health most of the time during the tornado transformation. So it's gonna this anima bonus is gonna proc indefinitely. As for Inera, you already have anima bonus scorch enemy, so that's an unarguable stats. It's a fixed stats, and I hope I could take it away, but like solid in with corruption enemy or something. But it's a fixed stat, so I have nothing else I could do. For the secondary guardian spirit, you want some other Soulcores to help proc confusion for you, because you'll be using mainly fire familiars. Though you could bring other familiars, it would be better to stick with fire familiars. For proccing confusion, Roman Sakuna is gonna be a good one. For that, it effectively applies fire and ice, as the ability stated, fire and ice, onto the enemy, causing instant confusion. Even if it's just one element, you can pair up with element like corruption from your Odachi or your weapons, or the fire familiars you're already applying at the moment to apply confusion by applying that additional water element. So effectively, one Soulcore covered two elements at the same time for you. I also bring Lightning God of Yomi, which is very effective in applying lightning to the enemy. You can also use this as a range to travel to the enemy location by teleporting right there. The additional stat wouldn't matter too much because we want to switch back to the primary as soon as possible after using these secondary ones, just to apply the elements. Lastly, I have Scampa Soaker here just to fill out the space, but you don't really need this. And that's pretty much it for all the items. Now moving on to the stats that you would want to upgrade. For my stats, I put 200 Constitution for higher health, for the maximum high amount of health pack I can get, which is 6,300. And it's much needed because I don't take overexceeding the amount of damage when I'm in tornado form anyway. It's more encouraged to have heart, courage, and strength to be at least 99, because it's gonna give us at least 25 fire, water, and lightning resistance, pairing up with the lightning stop with the lightning break, fire break, and water break effect in the Onmyo tree to give us at least a 25 resistance. Add on to the stop talisman, it's gonna give us over 60% damage reduction against that particular elements, and also prevent it from being applied, which gives us really high elemental resistance. Notice that my lightning is slightly higher. As stated before, I get additional lightning resistance on my accessory. This is because I hate the lightning enemies, and you can always get 2 additional resistances rolled on your accessory as to boost them by essentially 13.9 resistance. If you wanted, you could also get 2 of them on lightning and get complete immunity to lightning if you wanted to. Going back to the stats, I have my courage at 150 to proc the ultimate courage bonus so that we got 20% melee key consumption. Magic 200 is a necessity here, as to give us the maximum capacity of Onmyo magic so that we can bring all that shit we just mentioned. And also because our damage is gonna be scaling with Onmyo power. Though it's not too high, I would want to maximize it as much as possible. So that's the purpose of magic. It also procs the ultimate magic stats for us, so give us longer duration of buffs and debuffs, and it's just great. For stamina, I have it at 21, so that I can go below agility B, because staying at agility C means that you'll spend a lot of ki from doing anything. So agility B or below is much preferred. You can also slot in light armor Grievous for your for this setup, just so you don't need to put as much stamina points if you much prefer it somewhere else. For skill, I have it at 6 because I don't find it necessary for this build at all. Instead of giving just key post bonuses, but we're gonna be regening our key really fast with Barrier Talisman to begin with, so that skill stat is definitely not necessary. For dexterity, I have at 17 to give us enough space to bring 4 quick change scroll. Though for the last 2 points, I didn't know where to put, so I put it both in dex to give us the space for levitation. Stats like dexterity and stamina are both really dependable, and if you don't want, you can temper them so that you put those stat points maybe into courage or hard or strength or any other stats, or maybe even skill if you want to. Yeah. Now it's just a showcase of all my stats. Onmyo power is 726. We got the maximum Onmyo capacity at 40, which is gonna help us greatly. 22 Ninjutsu capacity for quick change and levitation is enough. We don't need that much. This is all my effects covered right here. Just quickly skim through it, or find out stats that you think unplausible. You can leave it at the comment section below, and I'll try to answer your questions um, as soon as possible. There's definitely more potential for this build to grow, but so far what I've covered is enough for this build to shine and definitely destroy depth bosses. Moving on, we'll be covering the titles. As seen below, what you mainly want to put your points in is going to be anima. As for higher anima cap, anima charge for faster anima recovery to keep our tornado going. Elemental damage taken is always welcome to make us more survivability higher against elemental type bosses. Yokai ability damage all, because we want to get that damage onto our tornado. And lastly, extended yokai shift. The yokai shift is going to be our trump card, and we're going to be covering that in the combat section later on. As for the Onmyo points, you mainly want life for higher health path, key, because it's going to be good for us to maneuver and have a higher maximum key for us to use in combat outside of tornado. Key recovery is also really great for the same purposes, and Ninjutsu power and Onmyo power as to give that additional damage and also make our buff last much more longer.